Hey everybody, this is Danny with Legendary Muscle, and today I'm here with Pastor Paul in his 1970 Plymouth Superbird. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, before we get into your car, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm senior pastor of First Baptist in Lady Lake, and one of the ministries is we have a racing ministry. We actually build cars, but we race what we build. I've been a drag racer since I was about 15. And it's kind of natural that it's still a part of my life.
Well, that's pretty cool. So what got you into Mopars?
Well, my dad started his own business, and all of his fleet cars were Dodge Dart station wagons. And I kind of got introduced to Mopar then, although nobody called it Mopar. It was all Dodge Chrysler Plymouth. And he had me doing the tune-ups eventually on his cars, and the first car I got was a 69 440 Barracuda.
Nice. That's a beautiful car. So speaking
It was terrible, a 16-year-old.
Well, yeah. You can get a lot of trouble with that car.
Oh, yeah.
So this car right here, I mean, this is a unique car, and it's a beautiful car. What drew you towards this car? I mean, how did you get this car?
Well, let me back up about 40 years. When it first came out in 1970, the dealership in Leesburg had one. I fell in love with it, but I had just bought my 440 car, and so it wasn't going to happen. Well, 13 years later, I'm in seminary in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And in Chattanooga, Mopar really wasn't the end car to have.
Yeah,
so they're fairly cheap.
That.
And I had always wanted a Superbird, so I would start asking around, and it sounds cliche. I heard about this Superbird that was under an oak tree, that if you go to Chattanooga, you get off an on-ramp and you drive down the exit road, you come to a dirt road, there are two cows on the right, you turn left, you go, and you're going to find, and one day between classes I did, I'm so glad the cows didn't move, and I literally found an Orange Superbird sitting under an oak tree.
Oh, really?
And the problem was it didn't have a nose.
Oh, okay.
Looking back, it was a very nicely optioned Superbird, but no nose on it. And then again, I'm asking around. I heard about a dealer up in Dayton, Tennessee, who supposedly had 3 Superbirds. Now, this is 1983. A dealer having 3 Superbirds. I thought, well, that's probably a wild goose chase too. Again, one time after class, I had a chance to go up, and I remember going around the corner of the highway, and I saw 3 wings sitting in the dealership. Okay. A white one, an orange and black one, and a blue one. And
nice.
That's how I came to this one. Looking for a nose for another one.
Looking for a nose. And then you ended up getting this one, huh?
Yeah. I asked the owner of the dealer if he had any parts, and he was, let me just say, a little rude in saying he didn't, but he said, I do have a Superbird I want to sell. And I was shocked. Now, I'd already looked at the Superbirds, and the other 2 are 444 barrel cars. And the orange one, I could not believe. It was a V code, which is a 446 barrel. And it was in the best shape of all of them. And that was the one he wanted to sell. And the princely sum of $5,500. And wow, I offered him $5,000, and he took it.
Wow.
So that's how I came up with it.
So what did it look like when you got it? Was it need a lot of repair? Or?
Well, it was basically solid. It's only 13 years old. But the roof looked like a big lion had just literally, with his claws, shredded the roof. It was a mess. The power steering gearbox leaked faster you can pour power steering fluid in. There was no windshield wiper motor. The exhaust system was flex pipe.
Oh boy.
It literally had 4 different size tires on it. The interior, the seats were pretty rough, but everywhere you looked, where it mattered, it was a very solid car.
Wow,
and the paint, anything that was horizontal was about 5 shades lighter than the rest of the car. It clearly had not been moved. Turns out the dealer had it for about 9 years.
Holy cow. So like back then, people weren't really into this car, but now they can't get enough of it. Yeah,
they really weren't. He had occasional offers, I heard since, but I just kind of caught him in the mood, and he wanted to move the car. Okay. But again, remember, General Motors were valued like crazy. Chryslers, they just really didn't care.
So what was the color that came on? Was this the original color that it came on?
That is the original color. It was one called a high impact color.
Okay.
One of the standard colors I think were, I know white was. I think one of the shades of blue was. But then you had all kinds of really neat stuff.
So what were the color options that did come with
Well,
this?
technically they were 7. You had white, you had 2 shades of blue, corporate blue, B5 blue, which was blue fire metallic, I believe. You had 50 of them that were petty blue.
Okay.
They were paint coated $9.99. Then you had limelight green, which I love, lemon twist yellow. Gotcha. You had vitamin C orange, and then you had Tor red, which is what this was. This is not orange, this is red, according to Plymouth.
Okay.
Dodge said it was orange, same color.
Oh.
And then you had two accidents. It's been documented. There were two, we call them root beer cars. They were burnt orange metallic or burnt brown metallic, however you want to call it. They were literally painted by Ep7. Now again, remember, on the assembly line, these cars were not painted with noses and wings.
Gotcha.
Those were shipped to Creative Industries and the cars were joined together. So this kind of two of them rocked down the line. They got painted brown. They didn't notice it till the end.
Oh.
And since Chrysler did not, they're not going to run it through to just change the paint color.
Exactly.
Shipped to Creative Industries with probably a quart of the right color and say, paint the nose and wing this color. And two of them got out. I think I can say this. One of those root beer cars is actually in the Don Garlis Museum in Ocala.
Oh, wow. So,
or Bellevue.
You heard that. If you guys want to see it, head out there.
Yeah.
So did all of them come with vinyl tops?
Yeah. My understanding is Daytona's no vinyl tops, although recently I found out there were two that were dealer installed. But all the Superbirds, because of the unfinished bodywork around the rear window, they covered it with vinyl tops. It's actually Bondo around the rear window. It was not leaded.
Oh, okay.
And so to cover that up, they were all vinyl tops.
Oh.
And all black.
Okay.
Some people have the idea, well, they were black and white. My understanding is that all the vinyl tops were black.
Black. All right. And now I noticed the side markers here. They're a little different. You've got a chrome one in front. You got a painted one in back. Was that something that they did, or?
Yeah, they did. It was an accommodation to making a Roadrunner into a Superbird.
Okay.
The front sheet metal of a Roadrunner did not match any nose cone configuration they could come up with. So what Chrysler did is they matched the fenders and hood of a 70 Coronet, and with some modifications at the bottom, and built that to match the nose. Well, the Coronets came with different side marker lights than Roadrunners did. Roadrunners were all painted on the trim.
Gotcha.
Coronet, being a Dodge upgraded, were chrome. They didn't change it. So Superbirds, if you look carefully, they're going to have a chrome or Dodge front marker lights on the front and a painted Plymouth or Roadrunner on the back.
Gotcha. That's kind of funny how they grab things from one car to put another.
These were not high quality control cars. they sometimes you think they weren't well thought out, but they worked. They really worked.
And they were very, very fast.
Yeah, they were designed, the wind tunnel test at Lockheed in Atlanta. My understanding is the wind tunnel test went up to 300 miles an hour. Of course, the car's nowhere near that fast, but they do work. The aerodynamics absolutely work, even on street speeds.
So your interior, I mean, it's pretty clean interior. Is that all original?
Well, the wear items have been replaced.
Okay.
The carpeting, the seat covers, well, and the headliner.
Okay.
Everything else is original. The dash pad, the door panels, all the metal trim, they're all original.
Okay. So I see yours is a bench seat. Did they ever come out with bucket seats on this?
Yeah. Again, a lot of folks don't realize it uses the standard interior that a Roadrunner would.
Yeah.
Which is a bench seat, and if it's automatic, be automatic on the column.
Yeah.
They had all the options a Roadrunner also have. You could get bench seat. I believe you get bench seat with automatic on the column. Most of the, buckets. Most bucket seats, I'm sure, were console. And you get console automatic or console 4-speed.
Okay.
Those and the interior colors you had two choices, white or black.
White
you
or
did have
black.
those two.
Okay. So your brakes and your suspension, is it original or is it upgraded, or
right?
What we got going on?
It is. They're all original. In fact, I believe they literally are all original. I think I have renewed them. I think one time we turned the front rotors.
Okay.
These cars came with basically the Pursuit brake or suspension package that a high patrol car would have.
Okay.
Now, I have been told that some of them came with drum brakes all around. I've never seen one. My understanding is they had the big disc in the front,
Gotcha.
I think 11 by 3 or 11 by 2.5, drums in the back.
Okay, that's pretty big.
But a very, very substantial braking system. Heavy-duty torsion bars, heavy-duty cooling.
Okay.
Heavy-duty leaf springs with like 5.5 on one side and 5 and 2.5. I mean, they were offset for the engine torque, and it just the suspension of these cars were very, very well thought out.
Okay.
And they work.
So those rims on there, are those the original rims that came with the car back then?
Yes.
Okay.
The car was a mess when I bought it, but years later, I'm still renewing the car.
Yeah.
And I start looking, and the wheels, the trim rings, the center caps, they're the right ones. They're the original ones. They were not reproduction.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I think in spite of the fact there were 4 different size tires on the car when I bought it. It was a mess.
A mess for a 13-year-old car.
What are you going to do?
So what were the engine and transmission options this came with?
Okay. Now that is a little strange. Roadrunners came with 383s or Hemis.
Gotcha.
No Roadrunner ever came with a 440. That was a GTX motor.
Okay.
These had 3 engine availabilities, 2 optional. And the base engine was a 440.
Okay.
It's the only Roadrunner ever built that I'm aware of that came with a 440 as a standard engine.
All right.
Okay. So 444 barrel was the standard engine. The first engine option was a 446 barrel.
Gotcha.
Dodge called it a 6-pack. Plymouth called it a 6-barrel. And then the ultimate option was a 426 Hemi.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
So speaking of engine, how about we have a look at it?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what do we have here?
Well, the engine bottom end is a little bit different too. Very heavy rods. Everything was forged crank. Forged rods, pistons of course were cast, but all the Hemis and 340s were. The intake manifold is a very, very different design. It gains horsepower from the 440 Magnum in 2 ways. One, the intake manifold is a much more high-rise design. So it's much more efficient. Then, of course, you've got the 3 2-barrel carburetors. They add, depending on who you ask, anywhere from 1,200 to 1,350 CFM of breathing. And with the intake manifold, the exhaust manifolds that Chrysler made on their Magnum motors were about the best in the industry.
Yeah.
They'll pretty much match headers up to about 5,000 RPMs or so.
Oh, wow.
So very strong motor. At 100,000 miles, this one lost oil pressure a little bit, and so I figured, well, maybe we're wearing it out. So at 100,000 miles, pulled the engine, went through it, the oil pickup had loosened. So the engine at that was still, we did go through it, put it back in the car. This one's got about 5,000 miles on it.
Okay.
They did not come with electronic ignition. That is a standard upgrade that everybody does, because nobody wants. Now, I did come with dual point, and I do have dual point distributor inside.
Okay.
I'm not going to use
Get that.
Purple Roadrunner horn.
Gotcha.
And in 70, they still had the purple Roadrunner horn. I think they all came with power steering and power brakes. Again, I've heard that some did. I've seen some, but I'm not sure the authenticity. I know where I bought this one, the technology was very low.
Yeah.
The dealer had had it for 9 years, so it had only been in private hands for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So I am absolutely sure that they didn't change over, and they just didn't, technologically, they didn't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
I've got the broadcast sheet to this car.
Okay.
And this one, power steering, power brakes, 446 barrel, which was about $135 option. Didn't cost much.
Wow.
And did not have many options. The 2-watt AM radio was actually an option.
Well, I like how you kept your exhaust manifolds and didn't go for headers or try to change any of the originality.
Well, we had that when I bought the car. It had headers and flex pipe. I mean, the car was a mess.
Oh, okay.
It drove and ran, but it was horrible. And about 20 years ago, I was able to find 70 is pretty much a 1-year only exhaust manifold because of the angle of the exhaust outlet.
Okay.
Found a set, cleaned them up, put them on, and I'm so glad I did. It looks so much cleaner, so much nicer.
Oh, yeah. It looks more original.
Factory style exhaust system. Although I've got different mufflers. Okay. This car's a driver.
All right.
When I bought it, it had 41,000 miles on it. It now has 105.
So This is a numbers matching.
And that's something, about 10 years after I bought it, I'm cleaning it up and thought, let me see where the motor came from. And the numbers on the bottom pad near the oil pan. And I was shocked when I got the numbers. I thought, well, that's a 70 number. And I compared to the VIN. That's the original motor.
Nice.
Really kind of neat.
So what kind of transmission?
Well, this has the standard, 727 torque flight.
Yeah.
Okay, not the original transmission. 446 packs and Hemis came with a Hemi torque flight.
Okay.
This is not a Hemi torque flight in this one.
Gotcha.
Now we rebuilt it to Hemi specs, but it doesn't have the big drum. The bands and clutch discs and all that. But very stout transmission. But the kind of rule of thumb in the muscle car era, if it is an automatic transmission, typically the transmissions go. If it's a 4-speed, typically the engines go.
Gotcha.
Maybe because it's an automatic is the reason I've got a matching numbers motor. But the transmission is not original. It is rebuilt nicely. It looks original. The only way you're going to tell is look at the numbers on the transmission, which is significant, but it's there. They all came, talking about running gear, they all came with 355 or lower rear gears.
Okay.
There was an issue. The federal government did not like these cars. These cars have a potential of 180, 190 miles an hour on the street, and that was not something that Washington took lightly.
Especially at that time of age.
No. So Chrysler had to put something either 355 or lower under these cars, and every Superbird or Daytona came with either 354 or 355 gear, depending on whether it's a Dana or an 8 3/4, or 391 or 410 gear.
Gotcha.
I wonder how many were dealer installed with 276s like this one.
All right, so that sounds pretty quick.
Yeah.
How about we take a ride in it?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, this car is an extremely long and aerodynamic car, huh?
Yes.
You were saying something about the wind tunnels, how they were testing them out? 300 miles an hour or something like that?
Lockheed in Atlanta did the wind tunnel testing of the cars. My understanding is up to about 300 miles an hour. They don't go anywhere near that fast, but they want to make sure they were stable, and they are very stable. At about 80 miles an hour, you can start feeling the aerodynamics coming to effect, and the car just feels more and more stable the faster you go.
So, this car right here, how many were produced actually of this particular model with the 6-pack in it, or the 6-barrel?
Gotcha. The 6-barrel cars have built 714 and 135 Hemi cars. The numbers for total production are a little bit fuzzy. Chrysler had a fire and the records were destroyed, but somewhere between 1920 and 1965 are the generally accepted numbers of the total Superbird production.
Were you ever able to take it to Daytona?
Yeah, we've had it on the Daytona track twice just for NASCAR events.
Yeah.
Most interesting thing is when I bought it, we had a closed 4-lane highway near our house, and had 2 3-mile straights, and we would do some high-speed runs on the car. They had mile markers, and we had stopwatches, and we could get a very, very accurate idea of how fast the car was going. And we never, for a flying mile, we never averaged less than 140 miles an hour. Wow. And it was still pulling at the end, looking at the tack and on the road. It looked like we were doing somewhere between 170 and 180 miles an hour. Again, remember, this has a 276 gear under it, not the original gear.
Yeah. Man. So is that wing in the back, is that adjustable?
Yeah, the wing's adjustable somewhere between 8 and 10 degrees, and you can really feel it.
Again, a lot of downforce?
Yeah, a lot of downforce. The car was designed to work, and it works. It's the most stable car I've ever driven in 3 figures.
So that thing ain't up there just for show?
It is not ornamental. It absolutely is functional. And the side uprights act as wings on an arrow. The car just goes straight.
That's awesome. Now the scoops that I'm seeing on top of your fenders, are those, what purpose do those serve?
Well, that's a subject of a little bit of discussion. The two normal answers are first, that when they raced them in NASCAR, they lowered the car and the wheels or the tires would stick up through the fenders. Of course, that was illegal. So they had to put scoops on top of the fenders for tire clearance.
Oh, okay.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also, there's a theory that they're there to evacuate air from the wheel wells
Gotcha.
to give better aerodynamics. I really don't know which one. Both of them make sense.
Yeah, I actually do. Because you want less wind travel under the car, so you need it lower to the ground.
Exactly.
Speaking of wind travel, you told me a little story a while back ago about something about vents.
About what?
About vents.
Oh, my soul. Yeah, the first night we were out doing those high-speed runs on a closed four-lane highway, literally the first night, buddy of mine was driving, and I'm watching, and I got the stopwatch, and it's a warm night. Without even thinking, I reached down and opened the two vents under the dash, not realizing they hadn't been open in over 20 years.
Oh, man.
And at about 130, 140, 150 miles an hour, we had 20 years of dirt blowing our faces, and both Marty and I were blind as could be, and we were both yelling and screaming. We survived, but I learned not to do that again.
Yeah. So, I mean, this car, when it came out, obviously it made a big impression in NASCAR, to the point where they said, you know what, you guys are just too fast.
My understanding is the wing cars won about 80% of the races they were entered into. I've seen a lot of the footage from races back then where the wing cars placed first, second, third, and then maybe half of the top 10. And back then you could race a body style for 4 years before we had to replace it.
Okay.
The Daytonas came out in 69, the Superbirds in 70. In 71, Bill France effectively outlawed them by saying if you run a wing car, you've got to run a 5-liter engine. Everybody else gets to run a 7-liter.
Oh, wow. So that's kind of like, it went from, hey, this is the best car we could produce stock, to no, everybody's going to produce the same car. Kind of pushed it that way?
Well, again, there's a story that Bill France said, this is a stock car racing venue, but now Chrysler put race cars on the street, so it's backwards. And that was, I guess, the rationale against all the aero cars, whether it be Ford or Chrysler.
Okay. So, you know what? I really appreciate this ride. Do you have a special shout out you want to give to anybody?
There is something. First off, Total Recon for the top. They did great. When you show the engine, the Superbird guys probably noticed the air cleaner.
Okay.
It's been on the car for 40 years. It was there when I bought it. It shows no sign of alteration of any kind, and yet it's very different from any other air cleaner I've ever seen. It has all of the Chrysler original contours and racing and all that on the bottom. If anybody has ever seen or can anything like it, give me some input on it. I'd love to find out. That's the great mystery of the car right now. Everything else is original. I can explain it. That air cleaner, I have no idea where it came from. I believe it's original, but I have no idea.
All right. Well, you guys heard him. If you know anything about that air cleaner, put a comment in the description or under the description, and we'll get back to you on that one.
That'd be great.
All right. So I guess this has come to an end, huh?
Okay. Well, I got one last thing to do, and that's drop the hammer.
Okay.
And I got a nice place to do it. So.
Yep. All right. All right. Oh, wow. That will get up and go, and it still wants to go.
Yeah, and that's, again, with a top-end gear.
All right,
If it had the
everybody.
original gear. Ooh.
If you like this episode, like and subscribe. We'll see you later.